It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back to your Feel Good Breakfast Show as we delve into a not-so-feel-good situation. They're your dream person, okay? They tick absolutely every one of your boxes that you've laid out for them beautifully on social media.
It's Graham.
You've seen their picture online. They look amazing. You've been chatting for months to this person that you know so well. You're basically in love. All you got to do is just make it official. Suddenly, red flags start to appear. They can't video call. They always have excuses about meeting up, and suddenly you start doubting. Am I being catfished?
Is that why you don't accept my coffee dates?
I don't even know who you are, bro. You have different hair every time I see you. I'm just nervous. Well, helping us unpack this convo is registered counsellor Sadia Southgate and social media content creator Zetu Ola. I'm dying to know if either one of you has been catfished ever. You look like you might have been catfished. I don't know why. You just have this look on your face like, now I'm going to get my revenge. Guys, thank you so much for joining us, because I didn't realize how many people have been affected by this. Massive.
I applies.
Yeah.
Anyway, for people who don't know, Zetu, please explain what catfishing is.
So catfishing is basically luring someone into a relationship or romantic situation under the false pretenses of your identity or under the guise of a fictional character. So you basically steal someone's image and likeness on social media, portray that person in order to gain someone else's trust and love, essentially.
The why of it is quite interesting, I would imagine, Sadia, because it's psychopathic, it's sociopathic. There are different layers to how hectic this can become. But at its heart, it speaks to someone who is broken and wants to represent themselves as someone else. You would think, why would you do this knowing that it can only end in one way? Why does someone who is doing the catfishing do this? What is the psychological makeup there? What's going on?
There's definitely, a lot of things that we can look at, but one of the things that we speak about is different attachment styles. So we call basically anxiety attachment style or just avoidant attachment style. So a lot of them also not just look for these attachment styles in other people, but they also have a lack of self-confidence, a lack of self-esteem, mental health issues, as you said, it's like sex, like a psychopath. But ultimately, when we look at, the attachment anxiety, it's someone who is constantly seeking that need for gratification or that need for reassurance. And when you look at also just the fear of abandonment, but someone who experiences attachment avoidance is someone who withdraws from close relationships. So essentially, when it comes to that, they often seek out these kinds of people that can fill that for them.
And I suppose it goes both ways, because as a person like that who is going to struggle to have a real-world relationship, you can create this little perfect relationship and maintain that for as long as possible. I want to know if there are two people still currently catfishing each other that haven't ever met and will never meet, because they're going to just... There's another movie here.
Before. Not to me, though. Sorry.
I set you up. I gave you the alley-oop.
No,
Come on.
I've seen excerpts from a show, and they were floating around on social media where, for the first time, usually it's the catfish being exposed, but it's like the catfish was meeting their fellow catfish, and it was like a catastrophe.
Oh, no, they just walked straight past each other and never actually met because they had no idea what they looked like.
Just quickly, I want to talk about the attachment styles. What kind of attachment styles are the worst for this situation? Because obviously there's one coming from the person catfishing, right? And somebody
so
the victim.
who's most susceptible to this kind of grooming?
I think it mainly comes down to just mental health issues in general, because that also broadens it for the different attachment styles. But I don't think there's necessarily just one attachment style that's dangerous, because all of it is, essentially.
Maybe there's two ways that we can look at this, because we've got the brain's trust looking from both sides of the dynamic. Red flags. So maybe let's start with how it appears online, because a lot of this would start with the phishing that you can do through a person's social media platforms, what you're putting on dating websites. You're basically telling a person, tick these boxes and you're mine and I'm yours.
Absolutely. I think a red flag, first and foremost, is the inability to even video call in the digital age. Constant cancelling of plans, I would say, is a red flag. And also, I think if George Ezra is DMing you, it might not be George Ezra. So it's like, to do your due diligence.
Can I go get my phone quickly? Just hang on a second. I just want to go get my phone.
So I think it's also just to take care of yourself as well, and also to understand that if someone is unwilling to get on a video call with you, is constantly cancelling plans, that might be a sign that they are not really who they...
Or they're asking for your bank account details. I think would be a major starting point. On that note, we're going to leave it there. We're going to dive straight back into this conversation. As we speak right now, now I have lost my Facebook account. So anything on Facebook that is claiming to be Graham Richards is not me.
This is a
brings
true
it home.
story.
And this is happening right now on Facebook. Can't fix it because of a professional name change at one point in my career. Crazy stuff. So it happens, and it happens right now. In fact, it's happening to people as we speak. If you've been affected, if you have fallen victim, or maybe something is playing out in your space right now and you think you're being catfished, let's catch them out. 063-408-8863. Yes, this is still S3. This is still your Feel Good Breakfast Show. We're just taking an interesting turn into some very murky waters.
It's my Feel Good Breakfast Show.
We're back with Sadia and Zetu to unpack this terrible world and a very interesting world of catfishing. You know, living in a very digital age, we've growing up in this, like, you know, with phones and the internet, more and more people are turning to apps to find love, self-validation, and we're talking about after the break. So when are we being catfished, and when are we catfishing?
I love that. I want to put it out there because I'm desperate to hear someone who's in this right now. If you've had this experience or you've got those red flags, that little voice we've heard is so important, your own intuition, please send us a voice note, 063-408-8863. Maybe we should get practical about this because we could go deep dive down this rabbit hole because there are so many different angles to look at, and it speaks to both parties being a little bit broken, to be honest. And if you are going to be groomed and guided into this unsafe space, it says to me that maybe there are a few holes that this person is identified and is filling and is then guiding you. What should we look at within ourselves if we are susceptible to this? Maybe that's where we should start, is with our own red flags, possibly.
Yeah, I think that's a very important question, you know, because a lot of the times we don't know even what our own red flags are within ourselves until someone actually, you know, points it out. Yes, presses that button, or we get triggered by something. But a lot of it just has to do with how we view ourselves, how we speak to ourselves, but also just when someone says something to us, how do we take that? Do we take it with a pinch of salt? Do we know, like, regardless of how we are being seen on social media, no matter the comments that come through, that we know who we are, essentially?
Or does it grate you for the next 3 weeks? You're like, oh.
Yes. Yes, but the ultimate thing comes down to, you know, just knowing who you are and just loving on yourself a little bit more, because a lot of the time, you know, there's a lot of things that we see on social media, and ultimately, social media is there. It's never going to go anywhere. It's a growing industry, but ultimately, if you can grow as an individual and love yourself regardless of what is happening around the world, you're solid.
I think AI is just going to disconnect us from the first clickbait, the first picture, the first anything. I have a feeling we're just going to not trust anything, dude.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting.
We were talking about it during the ad break, that when AI, we have deep fakes now, you know, and who knows what AI looks like in the next 10 years and how easy it'll be, where maybe you can have video interactions where your catfisher has taken on a different identity. They can create video content using your likeness from afar and pictures
They
from
are
afar.
doing it.
Exactly. They are doing
now,
it. They're actively doing it. So it'll be a lot easier for the catfish person to use your identity to generate new content using that person's likeness in order to continue conversations and believability.
Maybe even one day do a video call.
Maybe.
It is terrifying. I mean, you can maybe weigh in this as well, because I've received a lot of my digital education through you, but I think you all look at this from very pertinent angles here. How do I protect my kids? How do I protect my children from this? Do I make sure that they are just so super strong in their own identity? Where do we even begin with this?
I think the first thing that we need to start doing is, and it's happening, is that we need to build a strong culture around the internet and how we respond to the internet. One of the things we were talking about during the ad break was that we grew up with the internet. It started happening to us. Apps and social media happened in our lifetime. And we've had to formulate a culture. So a lot of people were tricked. All these new technologies take a lot of people by surprise. They're not interested in technology. They don't want to learn new things. And the problem is when you stay ignorant with, you know, everyone goes, I don't know about that. You become a victim to the schemes that technology has. Educating yourself is important. And our kids are growing up understanding the internet, forming friendships online, you know, forming these pen pals. And teaching our kids how to form a culture around that and how to treat other people online as real people is super important.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all going to be living digitally in that space as well, which is, it begs the question, do control measures need to be put in place? Is it up to the social media platforms? Is it up to, or do we just need to shore ourselves up?
I think as a parent, it's the same kind of education needs to now enter the dialogue, the same way that you teach children stranger danger, respect for people, what to look out for when they're walking home by themselves or have to go to school by themselves. It's that same level of education because that is happening to young kids. Young kids are being catfished by grown men who pretend to be, you know, young boys. And that is a form of catfishing, grooming, because it works the other way. That side of it is completely dark. But it's so important for them to understand that, you know, the world has its dynamics, but the internet also has its dynamics and its complexities. So I think more than, there will never be the measures placed on the World Wide Web to prevent this from happening.
It would negate what the web is.
What Grant was saying is that rather than we experienced it happening to us, we can empower our children to be able to preempt the situation.
And it's true. If you look on content, even content that's being put out on YouTube, pretending to be an animation that it isn't. It's happening on every layer of life. It says you need to become the gateway. Your child needs to be their own gatekeeper. They need to be empowered to see those red flags, but also within themselves, to know how they're going to get triggered, what personality type they are, and how to get the most out of that, and where they might be in danger. It starts with an education. Time to get back online. Maybe there's an app for that, Grant. Maybe.